3:45, 3:50. Okay. It's pleasure to be back in Calicut. Pleasure to be here for the Kerala Literature Festival. And we don't need translation, no? No translation. All right, if I continue in English? Okay. And, you know, just sitting here in front of the waters, I'm thinking of something from your land here that has shaped human history. This little black seed of pepper. This little thing used to be called black gold because they had to exchange the weight of pepper in gold. From the Roman Empire to the British Empire, they were talking about how importing pepper is draining the gold. And yet we've been made to believe today that no matter what we grew, no matter how rich our biodiversity, no matter how many centuries of wealth that biodiversity brought to this land, till we grow GM cotton and pay fake royalties to Monsanto because they don't have a patent, and we grow tomatoes and potatoes for Pepsi, India cannot develop and India's farmers can't have an income. Now, I got involved. You know, I'm a physicist. I thought I'd spend my life with something called the psi function, like that. I could really, morning till evening, dream about it. I got involved with Chipko, but that was still holidays and it was still vacations. But understanding the deeper issues of the crisis we are in globally and how abundant lands like India and Kerala have been reduced to dependency and the disappearance of water everywhere, it's something I really learned from my study in Punjab, where the land of the 5 rivers, Panj is 5, Ab is water. That's why Punjab is called Punjab. That's why my region, I come from the Himalaya, but down the Himalaya, that region is called Doab, the 2 waters, the Ganga and the Yamuna. And we even talk about it as the Ganga-Yamuna Sanskriti, of the diversity of cultures. Very sophisticated mixing, just like these waters have brought all the cultures of the world, all the faiths of the world, all the trade of the world to this shore. I was just talking and saying we must have a very big celebration next year. That a new India that builds on an India of 10,000 years is the only India that will last. Gandhi had said, it is a complaint that we are steadfast. But what is called civilization, all you have to do is watch it self-destruct. Today we are seeing it self-destruct. And at the heart of it is taking what should have been left underground, that nature had put all these leaves falling down, getting fossilized over 600 million years, extracted as gas, as oil, and an entire system was built on it. A fossil fuel economy, and I call it a fossilized thought. Thought stuck in deadness. And not just stuck in deadness that cannot see anything living, but killing everything living. Look at the map of the Middle East, to which, again, this coast is so intimately connected. How much of Kerala lives in the Middle East now? All of the countries carved out in the Middle East, every war of the Middle East is a fossil carbon war. Every one of them. What is called the Green Revolution was not green and it was not revolutionary. That my scientific analysis taught me. It was not green because it devastated the earth. Punjab, the fertile land, today is a land which is desertified. its waters have gone. That's why they have water wars. That's why they kill over the Satluj rivers. Diversion to Haryana and Delhi. In the 80s, the farmers rose in anger. It was named as a religious conflict, which my study showed was not. There was no conflict between Hindus and Sikhs. It was farmers against an establishment. And as they wrote so beautifully in their declaration, if you can't decide what you'll grow, you can't decide how you will grow it, you can't decide the price at which it will sell, you can't decide when the waters of your rivers will reach your fields, then you are living in slavery. And we want to be free. Not a Khalistan. They wanted to be independent as farmers, sovereign as farmers. The day they had announced we are going to block the grain supply to Delhi, that's when the army was sent to the Golden Temple, 4th of June of 1984. Same year, the Bhopal disaster happened. When I looked at the Green Revolution, I realized to grow the same amount of food, you're using 10 times more water. We've had agriculture for 10,000 years. We didn't have river conflicts. They began after the Green Revolution. Because if upstream Karnataka wants 10 times more water and downstream Tamil Nadu wants more water, and Punjab wants more water, and Karnataka wants and Haryana wants more water, there'll be conflicts. There'll be conflicts. But the part that is mentioned in my book, Soil Not Oil, is the part that is not known enough. I wrote Soil Not Oil before the Copenhagen Conference on Climate. Because when I added the figures in the climate data, 40 to 50% was coming from an industrial chemical food system, which is based on fossil fuels. 40 to 50% greenhouse gases that are causing climate change. How? First, the fossil fuel itself. I saw ads for Holland tractors. So why in Kerala with home gardens do you need tractors? Today, Madhya Pradesh farmers are in debt and are dying. Everywhere there's a tractor. So mechanization runs on fossil fuels. But something less well known. Chemical fertilizers are based on fossil fuels. They take gas, burn it at 500 degrees centigrade, fixes the nitrogen from the air, and that is used as fertilizer. But it's the same process that creates explosives and ammunition and bombs. And it was Hitler's factories that first made the ammunitions and then the fertilizers. And after the war, they said, why give it up? Make it look like you can't have fertilizer from any other source, even though the pulses in our fields, the dals, are nitrogen fixing. I call them the non-violent nitrogen fixers. They don't blast fossil fuels at high temperature. Very quietly, the bacteria in their nodules fix it. And we get protein in a diet, and the soil gets nitrogen. We are today importing 6 million tons of a fake dal called yellow pea from Canada. I did a calculation. We are losing annually 3 million kilograms of protein, and our soil is losing 3 billion kilograms of nitrogen because it has 7% protein compared to our dals, our chanas, our toors, 35% protein. Then we are giving subsidy, and yet the poor aren't eating it. I was on the CAG board, our controller of accounts. When 2 million tons were imported, it was a scam of 1,200 crores. Today it's 6 million tons, so you can imagine it'll be about more than 3,000 crores. How does it happen? The cartels pay the politicians to create the approval for the imports. Last year, the farmers who had grown pulses in Madhya Pradesh, no one was buying their pulses. They were the ones who were short. 6 of them were short last year. 6 of them. The third place, okay, so this fertilizer emits a gas called nitrous oxide which goes into the atmosphere. It's 300 times more deadly for changing the climate. 300 times more deadly than carbon dioxide. Everyone only talks carbon dioxide. If you look at the scientific work on planetary boundaries, this is what scientists are realizing, that nature has systems. And within those limits, we can live forever. When you break those systems, you get disasters like climate disaster. The boundary that has been broken in the worst way is the nitrogen boundary, chemical fertilizers. Those fertilizers use 10 times more water. Your plant doesn't want 10 times more water. The fertilizer needs 10 times more water to dissolve the salt. Then you're creating so much waste. You're dumping all your dumps, your waste dumps have a smell called methane. When our little cow, our veture cow is grazing, she doesn't emit methane. But when you put 1,000 of them in one factory and feed them soya bean, they emit methane. So factory farms are a big source of methane. Add the 3 together, add every piece of aluminium that's going in every package of Lay's chips. It's a contributor to greenhouse gases. I have worked with the tribals of Niyamgiri. Niyamgiri is a sacred mountain of Orissa. I've talked about it in Making Peace with the Earth. And the tribals there refuse to move. A company called Vedanta. You know, these days they pick the most beautiful names to do the most criminal activity. So this mining company calls itself Vedanta. Vedanta was Ramakrishna and Vivekananda talked Vedanta. Tribal said this mountain is Niyamgiri. It upholds the sacred law. If this is destroyed, our world will be destroyed. It's for bauxite, for aluminium. At that point, when I was helping that movement, I did the research. I said, okay, maybe aeroplanes, maybe cars, maybe that's where the aluminium is going. You know where most of the aluminium is going? Food packaging. Food packaging. So anyone wants a Swachh Bharat, all you have to do is ban that packaging and promote healthy local food. Our kids will have a better health. Our women, look at Kerala's Kudumshri. If the schools only allowed Kudumshri food and banned junk food, can you imagine how far we'd go? But look at the figures this year. Farmers are dying in UP. They were made to grow potatoes. Pepsi has been trying to make Indian farmers grow potatoes for them since the days I wrote my Green Revolution book. In my book, there's a page of the advertisement. They didn't exist in India before. They came into Punjab, said, we will create peace in Punjab by making Punjab farmers grow tomatoes and potatoes. They would pay the Punjab farmer 50 pies for a kilo of tomato, then collect from the government 10 rupees for an incentive. 10 rupees. Farmer got 50 pies. Potato failed, tomato failed, that's the end of that project. That dead project of the 80s is being revived in the name of pot. You heard about pot? Potato, onion, tomato, that's going to be India's agriculture. Potato farmers of UP are growing potato, lots of potato, with lots of chemicals. One bag of potato of 50 kilograms this year sold for 10 rupees. One bag of potato, 10 rupees. Pepsi gets those cheap potatoes, turns them into junk food, wraps them in aluminium, makes the kids believe this is improvement in their diet. How much are they selling it for? 50 grams packet for 20 rupees. Just do the calculation. 20,000% difference. How do these companies get bigger and bigger? How is Indira Nui now going to even head our cricket club? Did you see this morning's news? ICC she's going to be. Our food safety norms. Junk food is not safe food. No, Pepsi is writing. I just read, I'm waiting to find time to launch a new campaign because 3 things were done with the new globalization. The old globalization were for people coming to Kerala for pepper. The new globalization is Monsanto coming with GMO seeds, wanting to take royalties. Cargill coming to dump palm oil, soya oil. I remember we had an action here in Calicut Port when your coconut dropped from 10 rupees a nut to 2 rupees a nut because of the dumping of these bad oils which are unfit for eating. These oils are made through what are called solvent extraction plants. They use neurotoxins like hexane to get the oil out. Because soya bean is not an oil seed. You know, you take sesame or til or you take coconut, in your kitchen you can get the oil out. Soya bean, you can hammer it as much as you want, no oil will come out. So you got to extract it with hexane. It's a neurotoxin, proven to be a neurotoxin. No one's testing that for safety. Last year they shut down Gandhi's Ghani in Sevagram. I was called. We did a big satyagraha. We did a satyagraha when Cargill started to dump palm oil and soya oil and banned our mustard. Why did they shut Gandhi's Ghani? They said, you don't have a lab and 2 chemists in your employ. But Gandhi was providing an alternative to the industrial system. And not having a lab means you're not using unsafe chemicals in your food. You are eating pure food made by hand. The latest of this, I will call our food safety agency now the Pepsi agency because they're the advisors. They are going to determine the prasad in every temple, the langar in every gurdwara, the sacrament in every church, and the food in every mosque. And I said, by the end of their definition of safety, we'll all be eating Pepsi chips, no matter what our faith. So I'm going to launch a campaign. Please look out. Go to our various websites. The 2 websites you should keep track of is Navdanya and Seed Freedom. Navdanya is where we talk about seeds and organic. Seed Freedom is where we deal with the cartels. Who are the cartels? I mentioned the chemicals. Where did the chemicals come from? War. Materially, where did they come from? Fossil fuel. During Hitler's time, there was a cartel called IG Farben. They made the chemicals to kill people in concentration camps. They made poison gases for the war. Those same systems became the pesticides that we use. Endosulfan tragedy, north of here. Bayer was the first to make the endosulfan. Bayer was the first to make heroin. The name heroin came from saying people feel heroic. It's an addictive drug. Of course you feel a hero for a short while. Bayer and Monsanto are merging. The 2 giants are becoming one. And when Monsanto was tried by a competition commission, they said, you have a monopoly. Because 99% is controlled by them. That's why the cotton farmers are committing suicide. You know what Monsanto does? Take them to court. Now, this is unheard of. Governments are supposed to regulate businesses for unethical, antisocial practices. Here are corporations who sell poisons want to regulate governments, so they can't regulate them. So when I say we are in a dangerous moment, I talk about a poison cartel of 3. Bayer has merged with Monsanto. Dow, which bought up Union Carbide of Bhopal, has merged with DuPont. North of here, north of Karnataka, Goa, they brought a plant of an old nylon making plant. The panchayat said, we don't want it, it's polluting. A young boy called Nilesh Nayak was shot dead in the protests. That nylon factory never came up. But in the MOU of the nylon factory was, you will have to put zero liability. After Bhopal, every hazardous industry is coming into India with a commitment, no liability. We can kill your people, either directly like in Bhopal, or through poisons, or through disease, or through cancer, and we have no liability. You bear the burden. I've done calculations. You know how much chemical farming is costing us? Every year, only in environmental damage and damage to farmers, $1.2 trillion as much as our GDP. Add to it the health bill of the cancers, the chronic diseases, the heart problems, the metabolic disorders, all related to poisoned food. All. It's another 1.5 trillion in costs of medicine alone, not what happens to the person, not what happens to the family that has to take care of the person. We're talking about 3 times the GDP as an externality we are bearing so that the poison makers can have freedom. That is not the freedom that we fought for and got in 1947. That's my dissent. That our freedom is freedom for the earth and all her beings. Our freedom is for the last child to get food. Our freedom is for the last farmer to have a right to a livelihood with dignity and respect. Our freedom is a freedom from disease, and our freedom is a freedom from new slavery. A new slavery to a cartel of 3 for seeds, chemicals, and medicines. The same companies give you poisons and give you cancer. And let me ask, how many of you have a friend or a family member with cancer? How many of you know someone who has cancer? You're actually not so badly off. There are other places where 90% hands go up. Yeah? Then the buyers, same buyers who gave you endosulfan, come and say, no, we want a monopoly on the cancer drug. Big issues. These are cases in the courts. We fought. When I started Navdanya, and I should spend some more time describing why I did it. So in Punjab, I saw chemical farming destroy our fertile land. In 87, I'm invited to a meeting of the United Nations where the chemical companies are there, some scientists are there, and the chemical companies are saying, we're not making enough money, we've got to make more money. We aren't big enough, we've got to get bigger, we've got to be 5 to control all food and all health. And the instruments that will help the 5 winners win are, first, we've got to start owning the seed and taking royalties for every seed that the farmer plants. And the only way we can do it is by using genetically engineered seed. There were no GMO seeds in 1987, but they were planning to get to the GMO. So I sometimes laugh and say, see, after all, seed is an embodiment of creation and evolution. So I say, Monsanto has a hallucination that when it says GMO, it's basically saying, God move over, we are the creators. We are the creators, we'll take the royalties. The third thing they said is we got to force it on the world because Europe and America are not big enough as markets. So they did GATT, the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, which became WTO, which had an intellectual property agreement. That day I took a pledge, I will save seeds. That day I took a pledge, I will work with every institution to prevent the scientific error of pretending that a seed is a machine, and when you put a toxic gene into it, you're making a new machine. A seed is not a machine. Seed is a living system, self-organized, self-reproducing, evolving, multiplying. It's not like this mic. A patent is only given for inventions. A patent on seed is wrong because it's not an invention. We managed to get into our laws an Article 3J, which says seeds, plants, and animals are not inventions. That's our law. Monsanto is suing our government in the courts. Knock out this. Mr. Obama and Mr. Modi meet and all the time they're saying, knock out these laws. Give us the 3 things that you have. You know, even then they came for pepper. I'll call it biodiversity. I have tracked 9,000 patents on Ayurvedic medicine. 9,000. I have fought the case of neem. Neem was patented. Fought 11 years, we defeated the US government. Basmati, I come from Dehradun. Amazing basmati. A Texas company pretends it has invented it. And then India's wheat, which doesn't give gluten allergies, patented by Monsanto, we defeated them. They want biopiracy legalized, rather than treated as a crime. My effort is, a crime is a crime is a crime. Killing people is a crime. And these companies should be tried for culpable homicide. I put Monsanto on trial 2 years ago in The Hague, where the Criminal Court of Justice is, to put these crimes together from Argentina, from Brazil, from Vietnam, where they sprayed Agent Orange. There are alternatives. What we've done is we've saved seeds, and we've prevented bad law. We've created 120 community seed banks, which is so important for the future, because in these seed banks are salt-tolerant seeds. When a cyclone comes, we can still grow food. When a drought comes, we can still manage to grow good food, because all these extremes are increasing with climate change. Extended drought, too much rain, more cyclones. You've had your share of a cyclone this year. Cyclones have intensified and become more frequent 3 times. If they used to come once in 10 years, now they come 3 times in 10 years. So they bring salt to the land. You need salt-tolerant seeds. But the most important is, why do we call them community seed banks? Because the corporations want a world where they own everything. We're talking of water wars. One of my other I'm grateful I had the opportunity to work with the amazing women of Plachimada, with Mailama and others. They are the group that took up Coca-Cola and shut Coca-Cola down. Yeah? And I would request the Kerala Literary Festival to never have Aquafina in Kinley, ever in the future. They are criminals. They are criminals too. First because they steal the water, then because they destroy the health of our children. And then they destroy everyone's health, because this plastic, can you imagine the mountains of plastic? The key issues of where the garbage is heaping up are not being addressed, and I would request the enlightened public of Kerala to really do a count of the garbage. Where does the aluminium come? Where does the plastic come? Ek jhaadu laga ke thodi gayab ho jayega. I'm sorry for my Hindi, but you understood. A little broom won't solve this problem. It's an industrial problem created by a fossil fuel, pesticide, plastic culture. Because what do fossil fuels give us? That's what they give us, poisons and plastics. What does biodiversity give us? Life, nourishment. So we've intensified biodiversity. We changed the model of green revolution. We said, we're not going to measure yield. We're going to measure nutrition. So we measure nutrition per acre and health per acre. Our systems, like the gardens of Kerala, can grow more food. We can feed 2 times India's population, rather than monocultures of potato, which are killing our farmers, the soil, and making Pepsi richer. Before you know it, at this rate, Indira Nui will be on every committee. She'll be human rights, she'll be gender justice. I mean, tell me, what is Pepsi leaving? What are they leaving? Of course, she's a woman from Chennai, so. These days, every rascally company has an Indian to head them. Look at Alphabet, look at Microsoft, you know. It's a new era of colonization, this time through digital colonies. I won't go into those details, we don't have the time. Not only are we able to grow food that could feed 2 Indias, our farmers are not just earning twice as much, they're earning 10 times more than the commodity growing farmers. 10 times more. We've created another economy. An economy that gives health to the family, that puts women at the center, that increases the diversity, that takes out the greenhouse gases from the atmosphere, puts it into the soil, and there is 100 100% solution in this. In the Paris Agreement, the government of France recognized that in gardens is the solution. I want to end with not just the fact that here's the sea that made India a pluralistic, multicultural society of the richest kind, and Kerala has been the place of entry of diversity. It must become the upholder of cultures of diversity for the future. My request to you, a very humble request to you. But you are also an agriculture of gardens. You're not an agriculture of monocultures. Your gardens, each garden has how many layers? Three-dimensional farming. Every inch of a small garden is used. That is brilliance. That is creativity. That is efficiency. So I say, you know, God's own country is God's own country because human beings behaved in a responsible way with respect to the earth. They became gardeners rather than warmongers. Chemical farming, monoculture farming, commodity farming, junk food processing are all wars against the earth and our bodies. Ecological farming, gardening, healthy food, artisanal processing are making peace with the earth and ourselves. This exciting moment is a moment where simple things can be very, very revolutionary things. And I really believe that little garden is the most revolutionary place. Because a garden everywhere is the only hope for the planet. I'm laughing because the two brilliant men who've just said, Earth is going to die. Earth is dying. We've got to escape. Sadly, the Western man has always tried to escape. First, Descartes tried to escape from his body. They're still trying to escape from their bodies. They think the body is a prison. They really think the body is a prison. But Stephen Hawking said last year, the Earth's going to die, we are going to die, we'll either be extinct or we must escape. We must find other planets. But there are no other planets that are living planets. This is the only Gaia. There's a brilliant universe. We keep having science fiction about other beings. A lot of people are waiting for deliverance. But the place where the future will be sown will be here when we start taking care of the earth rather than trashing her. The other person who has dreams is our dear Elon Musk, who brought an electric car. Elon Musk last year said, I'm starting SpaceX so we can move to Mars. Except 7 billion people is too much. Because the ticket will cost 1 billion. And maybe I can take 1 million. And he said, I've got it all sorted out in my head. I even know how to put a Pizza Hut on Mars. I said, poor man, he hasn't eaten a good Kerala meal. You can never serve in a banana leaf out there. Anyway, he's not got there, but he sent out his car in a space shuttle. But that's what Apollo did. You know, the space age was 40 years ago. He's going back in time. They folded up the Apollo program. He's becoming new Mr. Apollo. And instead of astronaut, he's got his car. It's the ultimate machine worship. It's the ultimate worship of a mechanical mindset and the fossilized mindset. This is the moment of another awakening. Another awakening that's of living intelligence, of biodiversity, and us working co-creatively in peace with the earth. That's our love, that's our duty, that's our care, that's our promise. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vandana Shiva. And it's no doubt that she has been the recipient of Right Livelihood Award in 1993, Medal of the Presidency of the Italian Republic in 1998, the Horizon 3000 Award from Austria 2001, 2007.
I don't remember.
Then Save the World Award 2009, Sydney Peace Prize 2010, Calgary Peace Prize Canada 2011, the Thomas Merton Award 2011, the John Lennon Yoko Ono Grant for Peace, and most importantly, the Fukuoka Grand Prize Laureate 2012. Now, we'll put her session for discussions, questions, queries. Welcome.
Hello.
We'll take the questions in a cluster and she'll answer to it in the last. Okay.
Okay. Good evening, madam. We are now come to an age where the scientists and the people who are telling us you change into biofarming. And after the independence, we used to use all the fertilizers, all the pesticides, and now we are come to the biofarming. And we have a kind of uncertainty whether it is possible to grow the actual our farming, our yield when compared to the chemical fertilizers. Can we grow the our field, agriculture without this chemical fertilizers? Is it possible to feed our country?
Common people look up to democracy as their savior, but in these times when corporates gobble up democracy, what's the way out for us for go for an eco-political this thing, or what's the solution? The corporate versus democracy.
Good evening, ma'am. How can we control the monopoly of seed?
Ma'am, what is your take on the environmental damage caused by the Sri Sri Ravi Shankar Foundation to the Yamuna? What is your take on the environmental damage caused by the Sri Sri Ravi Shankar Foundation to the Yamuna banks? And one more question is the famous popular Kerala environmentalist SFIZ accusing you of plagiarism. You have copied one of his articles verbatim. You have copied one of his articles verbatim. That's what you have been accused of by one of our leading environmental activists from Kerala, Mr. SFIZ. He says that you occasionally attributed to him, but without attributing, without quoting, you have copied verbatim. That's what he says.
Madam, the seed replacement system, how seed replacement system has changed our cultivation system? That's my question.
Madam, actually the problem rises related to depletion of nature is due to the neoliberal policies leading to globalization. So is there any alternative for globalizations according to you? And alternative policies related to globalization?
One more?
Madam, is it because of the Monsanto-like companies? Some others said that Earth is the only lunatic asylum in the entire solar system. Earth is the only lunatic asylum in the entire solar system. Is it because of Monsanto?
So for the issue that, chemicals were promoted, not after independence. After independence, we had an agriculture minister K.M. Munshi, who promoted organic. I know IAS officers who were training after independence who used to be taught how to compost. A district magistrate had to learn how to compost to teach the villagers how to compost. 65 was the year that we were forced to adopt chemicals through something called the Green Revolution. And this was the year when Lal Bahadur Shastri refused. He said, I want more wheat, but not by changing my agriculture. And that year, you remember, in Tashkent, he had a very mysterious death. 66 is when the chemicals came to Punjab. And within a decade, they had destroyed Punjab. In central India, in 5 years, they have destroyed villages. I was talking to colleagues who are from Bundelkhand area, and I said, what's the latest situation? When can I come to visit the farmers? He says, you won't find farmers. Every door has a lock. Everyone has left. It's so badly devastated. Yes, we have to wake up. But right now, there's a schizophrenic policy. Sometimes it's organic, sometimes it is the next dose of chemicals. You said, can we support the food issue? I want to give you two figures. First, wherever chemicals have been applied, actually productivity is going down. Fertilizer response for the last 30 years has gone from 13 kilograms in 1970 to 3 kilograms in 2005. That's no way to produce more food. This is the ICAR data, it's not my data. 20 years we've done biodiversity farming in Doon Valley. We have more than 5,000 farmers there. We have more than 1 million farmers practicing an ecological system. Organic matter has gone out 99%. This is the climate answer and the fertility answer. But the part that the scientists will have to wake up to is, in organic soils, the nitrogen has gone up 100%. It has gone down 22% in soils where urea is applied. Why does that happen? Because the urea kills the earthworm that produces the nitrogen. It kills the mycorrhizae. It kills all the microbial life that produces the nitrans. Our zinc is up, our magnesium up. These are the micronutrient deficiencies that are causing so much disease. So in fact, ecological is the only way to go. You can call it what you want, but working according to nature's laws and not according to the laws of warfare. Because the chemicals came from the laws of warfare. On the issue of corporate control, because of the issue of corporate control, not only did I start Navdanya, but I could see, there were 3 treaties that have destroyed India's farming and food. The attempt to monopolize seed, the dumping of high-cost production at low prices in India, destroying local production, and the third is junk food. Coca-Cola was thrown out from India in 1977. Some of you might remember. George Fernandez threw them out because of financial corruption. They came back because of globalization. We could see that they're going to destroy the land, the earth, the planet, farmers, and our health. Is there an alternative? Yes, there's an alternative. I call that alternative earth democracy. A democracy that grows from the ground up. North of here, in 1994, before WTO, we created a biodiversity republic, a community biodiversity register in a panchayat called Patuvam. The first place where we said, these resources belong to the community. They are not yours to grab and destroy. This is our sovereign wealth. We will have to create more deeper democracy. There was another question on neoliberalism. See, neoliberalism is only the last leg of colonization. Vasco da Gama arrived here, but Columbus traveled before him. Columbus was trying to get here, he just tried the other route and found America. But he called all the Native Americans Indians. So my Native American friends, we hold hands and say we are all Indians. We are all Indians fighting against colonialism of every kind. The globalization that was started formally by the East India Company, just think of the name, East India Company, UK-based company designed to colonize India for the pepper, the spices and the textiles. And there was a time the Maharaja of Travancore had to send a letter to the Queen because she declared the teak of the Malabar forests were hers. And he had to say, no, you're not the Queen here, sorry. I'm sure you've read Shashi Tharoor's book on the era of darkness. 25% economy of the world when the British arrived, 2% of the economy of the world by the time they left. That colonialism is neoliberalism. Look at any law of neoliberalism and look at every British law, it's the same. And I say the way British impoverished India was creating a system of Lagan. You remember the film of Amir? Lagan. Everything is Lagan. You own nothing, you grab someone else's wealth, then you put a tax on the person whose wealth you took. The land of the peasant, same. The seed. Monsanto does that. They take Lagan on seed. Now digital economy, what is it? I give you 100 rupees, you give 100 rupees onwards. You're forced to do digitally. Citibank today has announced that India is their biggest market since demonetization and Aadhaar. Aadhaar is not about our relationship with government. Aadhaar is about our slavery to corporations. And because the new corporate slavery is via a digital interconnection, even the new piracy is happening digitally. Mr. Gates is financing digital piracy. All you do is read a genome, patent it. How did Amazon destroy the publishing? I mean, we are at a literary festival. Let's celebrate small publishing. How did Amazon destroy it? By having a platform. The man makes nothing. Gandhi had said the worst sin is wealth without work. We have been taken over by corporations who are rent collectors. They are rent collectors on the basis of stolen wealth. From Bill Gates to Monsanto to Mr. Amazon to Facebook, all of them. And they're a danger to democracy. I don't know how many of you have read. Facebook's posts became the basis of algorithms that were used by Trump to create hate. Trump won because of Facebook and algorithms. I'm trained in mathematics and physics. An algorithm is not a magical phenomena. It's just a calculating process. Now, if you put all your trust in the person writing an algorithm with all their biases, in effect, you are sowing the seeds of hate. So I say today's neoliberalism destruction is not just the ecological destruction. It is the fact that you have put power in the hands of 1%, who then have declared, and I read these articles daily, I read these books daily, they've declared 99% of humanity as disposable. The world will be 99% useless people, and I want the young people here to take on a challenge and declare we are not disposable, and we will shape our future on our terms. That's freedom. 99% disposable humanity. If the 1% controls, what are they going to do? Will they let the 99% rise? No. They have to divide and rule. The British did that. After East India Company was thrown out in 1857, the British said the first thing we have to do is divide the Muslims and Hindus because they fought together. If they're together, they'll drive us out. So divide them. So all the rule of the 1% and the politics of hate are twins. They go together. They're not separable. They are non-separable twins. So if we want to deal with this, you've got to deal with the other democracy. You can't deal with fragments. The 1% are the problem. I've done an analysis. My new book will come out soon. Even the corporations themselves are owned by the 1%. And their hedge funds and their investment funds. You know, from 1 year to the next, they go from 3 trillion to 4 trillion. From 4 trillion to 5 trillion. How do you make that kind of money? Speculating, grabbing. The monopoly on seed, the question, how do we prevent a monopoly on seed? By not letting it grow. Got to save your seeds, grow your seeds. That's what we've done in Navdanya. Everyone should become a seed saver. Because being a seed saver, you are the new freedom fighter. Even if you're in a city, take one pot, put a tulsi in it. Take one pot, put your favorite plant in it, and say, your seed I will protect. And that commitment is my commitment to the freedom of the earth and the freedom of everyone. Don't buy the toxic seeds because there's nothing in them. The GMO seeds bring you nothing. They failed. They failed to control pests. They failed to control weeds. The chemical seeds only bring you chemicals. They're vulnerable to climate change. They need 10 times more water and are the root of all the desertification, drought, and water wars. They're the root of climate change. You don't need them. This is, you know, I want to mention, the way they talk about our native seeds is they call them primitive. We were also called primitive cultures. Everything that has to be colonized is called primitive. Everything that has to become free has to recognize that uniqueness is not primitiveness. Uniqueness and independence of evolution is freedom. And someone else is not going to decide for us whether we are primitive or not. Someone else will not decide for us whether we are useless or not. Someone else will not decide for us whether we are obsolete or not. We will decide. And with the seed, we will decide that. Now, everywhere where local seeds have grown and come back, people have more health. The food is tastier. I've helped farmers build markets. People come to us for dals. They're saying this is the only place where I can taste real dal. They come for atta, fresh atta. Because that Nature Fresh of Kargil has 60 chemicals in it. 60 chemicals. Do they ever tell you that they add sawdust? They say high fiber. They never say sawdust. Because if you grind whole wheat, it will be high fiber. They take out the fiber, sell it separately. Take out the germ, sell it separately. Then add all kinds of pollutants. And they change the health standards. The seed replacement issue is a totally contrived issue. Things that are perennial. Perennial doesn't mean it's static. Perennial means it's evolving. In physics, we call something a stationary state, where the electron keeps moving. The state is stable, but the movement is not static. Seed replacement assumes you are primitive, give up your seed, use chemical seed, use GMOs. This was forced through the Green Revolution on India, and is a measure of how progressive you are. It is actually a measure of how vulnerable you are as a farmer, and how vulnerable you are to the climate, and how vulnerable you are in your health. Good things evolve. Colonizers want to replace. So seed replacement is a scientifically flawed term and should not be accepted. There were a lot of questions from here. I don't need to plagiarize. Otherwise I'd have to plagiarize 20 books. So please find all my paragraphs in 20 books that are plagiarized. Okay, thank you.
Hello. Hello, ma'am. Glad to meet you here in Calicut, and thanks for that vibrant session. You spoke about garden farming and all those kind of things. But at the same time, at least in niche areas, we are talking about agriculture without soil. I'm talking about hydroponics and aeroponics. So what's your take on those kind of next kind of farming?
Yeah, the term next is something I abhor because it assumes a linear progress and it assumes a chrono-colonization. What I mean by chrono-colonization is whatever the colonizer wants you to become a slave to is called the latest, and everything that was yours is called primitive. First of all, as a pure ecological duty, you have to take care of the soil. Pure ecological duty. There's an ancient Veda that says, in this handful of soil is your future. Take care of it, it will protect you for millennia. Destroy it, it will destroy you. Every civilization that has gone was destroyed because of soil. Every civilization that has gone because of soil. The two questions I have asked people who do hydroponics is, give me two calculations. First, give me a calculation of how much energy goes in, because these are high energy systems. And energy systems are entropy creating. Okay? The second thing I've asked is, I gave you figures of how organic farming increases zinc. I didn't put the zinc into the soil. The soil organisms created the zinc for us. I have asked them about the trace elements and micronutrients. I've never got an answer. Now, we have got so used to thinking of food as tough. You know? It's a lump of material. It doesn't matter what's in it. But food is living and is the source of our health and life. If food is deficient in micronutrients and is nutritionally empty and it's full of toxic, it is becoming the biggest health hazard of our times. Yes, it's interesting, hydroponics, but the volumes that are needed, one, but I have a basic philosophy. Food is the currency of the web of life, as an ecologist. The leaf falls, it gives food to the soil. The soil organisms eat it, give me food. My food should actually become compost at the end. Yeah? Go back to the soil. The cycle carries on. Hydroponic as a technique will give you something to eat. But how much is it maintaining the web of life in the larger sphere? And I think we have to have when I say we've got to get out of the fossilized mechanistic mindset, part of what we have to get out is the dominance of thinking through tools. I have a new tool, I have a new technology, to thinking through the web of life. What is our action doing to the web of life, rather than I have a new tool? Because the conquest of today is through showing off of new tools. They could be your slave. I mean, look at the gadgets, you know. This thing, if you're not careful, and if you don't use it according to your choice, this will be deciding to your life according to the choice of the Apples or the Googles or whoever. They'll decide what you think, they'll decide what you wear, they'll decide what you eat, they'll decide how ignorant you will be. Yeah? So, worship of money and worship of tools is an error. Use of money and use of tools can be good for humanity if we have values that allow us to assess it. That means we must have independent thinking. That is democracy, that is freedom. Thank you.
Just awesome. Do we have that soil where we could grow our food which would not poison us? Will we have that water which will make us feel free that we are drinking the real water? Let's ponder about it. Thank you, Dr. Vandana Shiva, for this exciting session. Thank you, one and all, for the participation.